Jennifer, where is your partner tonight, your presenting partner?
I don't know. She left me high and dry. What's up with that?
Okay. Well, look, before we begin, any questions? Any questions? Any programmatic question or anything? Scheduling? Well, let me close this door a little bit. Over. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. What is that noise?
A chair moving.
Okay. Well, look, let's begin by, in our own way, everybody saying their little piece about, internally, about all these people that lost lives from natural disasters, lost homes, Puerto Rico, Barbuda, all of these places around the world. And then this incredible disaster yesterday, where there's, 500 people injured, and, 60 people dead. And somebody asked me a question years ago. There's a lovely man, a psychiatrist. I may have shared this story with the group at one time. A psychiatrist from Argentina. And he said, Michael, I really love your work. I respect a lot of what you're doing. And it seems that what you do is you're looking at individual relationships to archetypes. Okay, and a client's relationship, or where we are vis-a-vis the great mother, great father, negative father, all these important issues. And hopefully, if our work goes well, we do make some changes in somebody's life, help them realign to something more generative. He said, but have you ever thought about trying to affect the archetype itself? I said, I don't know, what do you mean? He said, if you look at, to segue into something I'll begin with tonight before we get into Jennifer and Evie's presentation. So let's say the archetype of evil. You have individual relationship to the archetype of evil, people that are possessed. You have Hitler and Manson and probably a lot of people, maybe this guy with just the shooter over here. He said, in addition to looking at how people are related to these archetypes and aligned to them, possessed by them, do you think there's any chance we could ever do anything to the archetype itself? And I said, man, I'm going back about 15 years. And I said, I never thought about it. I'm not going to say I was ashamed of myself for never thinking about it, but just it never entered my realm because I was working so hard to understand, like we're going to do in the story tonight, hopefully, understand something about the nature of the story. What's the tale about? What's the archetypal underpinnings of that story? But again, his question was, is there any way that we really can affect the workings of an archetype itself? I mean, it was an incredible question. And, I'm not interested in, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I don't find all that interesting, that kind of stuff. But this I found incredibly meaningful. And I think one of the things we can do right now is help to identify the activation of a possession in a complex. And that's immensely important in the individual and collective lives. I'll say it again. Those of you that are just coming in, Aurelia and Evie, we're talking about the question of how we're doing a lot of work understanding the individual relationship to an archetype, or the relationship, possession by, whatever. And the question was, can we do anything to the archetype itself? And first response I had after about a couple of years of being able to think about the question, I said, we can help somebody understand when when an archetype is activated. And I'm sure in the lives of all of us on the call tonight and people we know, and especially people in our life, let's look at it that way, they could tell when there's something activated in you, like the storm that's brewing. I mean, Laura Lee's great at it. She can say, Mike, what the hell's going on with you? I mean, what do you mean? There's something going on. There's nothing going on. If you keep nagging me, there'd be something going on. There's something in you. What's working? I said, I have no idea. And then 2 days later, like a weather forecast, the storms hit. Now, I'm not trying to make light of the analogy. Those of you, Dick and Georgiana, that live in areas where the storm, maybe Jennifer too, where the storm hit. But you can begin to see when there's something constellated in the life of an individual. I mean, with patients, I mean, sometimes you can tell when there's a secret that they're working over, or not working over, a secret they're trying to maintain. And you begin to see the outcroppings of that secret in their behavior. You could see it when somebody's beginning to be under the spell of a complex. You begin to see rumblings of it. And a lot of our work is hopefully being able to look at some of the signs and symptoms and behaviors and patterns and textures that go with certain archetypes to say, well, something's coming up. And I think it's the rumblings of a particular archetype. I think it's something about the, and maybe the Puer or the Puella archetype, or somebody's getting possessed by the issue of midlife, whatever, or not dealing with it. But the big question remains, and something I always think about a lot, which is, can something be done about the ontological itself? Now, an article in a wonderful book called Psychic Energy by Esther Harding. And Evie, just so you know, I'm just spending a few minutes as a preamble here. A couple comments.
Okay.
from me.
No, that's good.
And then you and Jennifer are going to be doing your presentation.
Okay.
She talks about war, and she said, look, isn't it wonderful we have all these peace efforts?
Say again, precepts?
Esther Harding's in the book Psychic Energy. Excuse me. She says, isn't it wonderful we have all of these peace efforts around the world? Prayers for peace, monks for peace, people for peace. We bring people. I mean, look at our call. We have probably 4 different countries on the call tonight, from, Colombia, Russia, Canada, America, maybe others. I don't know. And we bring people to the table and let's talk and negotiate and break bread together to try to make something good happen. But she said, if you look at almost every species, not every species, but the majority of species have been warring since the beginning of time. Who's area code 614?
I don't know.
Well, let me get that right. Hold on. Yeah.
That's Vancouver.
Who is it? Oh, Vancouver.
Oh, 614. Sorry, no.
614. Okay. And she said, if you look at history in the world of zoology, animal behavior, we find that almost every species has their wars. That book, The Territorial Imperative, I forget who wrote that. No, I don't think it's Desmond Morris, when he talked about the stag on the hill. And the stag will fight until there's a bigger stag that's going to come and get it. And you've had, in the human realm, we've had war from early on. And Robert, if you want to read an incredible book, read, what is it by Langs? I think Beyond Yahweh. And it's a lot about God and the death instinct. And Lang said, look, in the Bible, what we have, and it's one of these, another brilliant Langsian comment. He was just so off the charts. He was a brilliant man. He said, if you look at the Bible, who were rewarded, predator or prey? And he said, yeah, and he said the predator was rewarded, from Abraham to on and on and on. I'm sure we could all name different figures in Bibles, in biblical stories. And he said the predator was afraid of becoming prey, so they become the predator, and then they're rewarded. And I mentioned Abraham because I've given a series of lectures about it. I think it was some of my most original work, and it wasn't the best received of all my lectures because it's very controversial stuff. But maybe I'll give part of the talks tonight here. But anyway, he says, when you live in a world with a predator prey, you better become the predator so you're not eaten up by the other one. And when I go fishing, one of the things you look for sometimes, and Max and Butch, we went one day looking for striper right in the area. And where we went, there's a lot of bait fish. And there's a lot of bait fish there, which is wonderful for the bait fish until the big fish find them, and the little bait fish become food for the bigger fish, and the bigger fish become food for us if we can catch them. It's a whole hierarchy of of dynamics that go on, and we're all part of it. So what Esther Harding was getting at was, she said, you know what, I applaud all of the peace efforts we've always had from the beginning of time. Jesus is peacemaker, Moses, Gandhi, whatever. But she said, I don't think it's going to work. Now, she wrote this, I don't know, maybe 1940s, 1950s, I don't remember the date. This is in Psychic Energy. I recommend you get the book, Psychic Energy, by Esther Harding. And she said, I think we have to admit that war is an archetype. And archetypes mean it's part of the built-in ontological features of humanity and the animal kingdom. And archetypes are not reserved for humans. They're not, I should say, they're not only for humans. It's part of the entire sequence of life. So what we can do, and this is where Eric Neumann made some very, very brilliant observations. He said, what's one of the major dynamics of war? Okay? What's one of the major dynamics of war is projection. It's you Canadians, it's you Russians, it's you Americans, it's you New Yorkers, it's you, you know, Philadelphia people, you're the bad ones, you Florida people, you're the ones, you know, and we're always looking for a scapegoat. And you realize since the beginning of time, humanity has attempted to expiate guilt and expiate their demons. And we have a whole litany of processes beginning, I think maybe one of the earliest was the scapegoat. You know, the literal goats that we tied the thing on, tied our sins on and ran out of town. So from scapegoats to sin eaters to shamans to confession to many others. We always wanted to take what's inside of us and get rid of it. It's expiating guilt. And as long as you can find someone to carry it, we feel better. You're the ones. It's you out there in Oregon, all you people. You're the crazy ones. Or Jennifer, you guys out there in North Carolina, you're the ones that make all the trouble for the world. And what happens is, as long as you can project it onto them and they carry the evil, what do you want to do then? Well, I'm sorry, but we got to destroy you because you're the evil ones. And in many ways, you hate to say it, or maybe don't hate to say it, but religion is another prime example of the expiation of guilt, with the whole domain of heaven and hell. Now, it's interesting, and I'll say a few more things and I'll shut up. Hold on. I'm going to mute everybody 1 second. Get off the new pairs in. Okay. When it happens, I mute everybody for like 2 seconds, and often it repairs itself. So what you do is you find the person that looks evil, they carry the evil, they smell like evil, and we then say we feel really justified and we feel quite good and sanctified in our need to kill you. So when you have heaven and hell, and many psychoanalysts say something which I think is a faulty assumption. They say, well, it's a splitting, because the human psyche can't live with good and evil as one unit. So we say the bad's over there, the good's over here, and we got to triumph over bad, all this kind of nonsense. Neumann made one of the most brilliant commentators. Anybody ever want to do a thesis and a great piece of work? Some of you guys down under, Suzanne in Australia, whatever. And maybe some of us could talk with the Russian-U.S. conflicts that go on. And look, America has projected onto Russia. And I'm not saying anybody's innocent here. We never know the fact. But America has projected for years from Cuba to Russia. So, but Neumann said the old ethic is when we project evil onto others and we have to kill the bad ones. He said the new ethic, and this is the book, Depth Psychology and a New Ethic, and I've said many times in our seminar, one of the most brilliant things ever written. Eric Neumann, Depth Psychology and a New Ethic. He says the new ethic is, instead of projecting evil, say, where is that in me? Where is that bigoted, maniacal side of me? Where is that tyrannical side that wants to control everything? Where is that part that I project on the Middle East? They're all out to kill us, those crazy Arabs or whatever. And Neumann really offered a little bit of hope in that. Now, does that mean we can ever annihilate or eliminate the ontological existence of war or evil? I don't think so. So where psychoanalysis comes in and they make an interpretation of heaven and hell, they say it's a splitting, it's a fracturing. So originally there's one unit, like a ball, right? Heaven and hell, like, Australia's on one end of us and America's on the other end and all that, okay? So we take that ball and we sever it in half. And you banish the bad down to there and the good up to there. Well, I'll give you a different slant on that. And maybe meaningful to you, maybe not. Splitting and saying that these two domains have been split off because we can't live with the existence of each. An alternative way of looking at this is to say heaven and hell, good and evil, exist as separate archetypal entities unto themselves. Each exists as an ontological core issue in the human, individual, and collective psyche. And when you have the rulers of heaven and the rulers of hell, I think it makes a lot of sense when you look at it in terms of the field theory. You see what I mean by that? That if you say that there is a field of hell with its own contours and its own behaviors and its own ruler, you have the world of heaven with its own contours, its own dominance, its own rulers. Each exists in much the same way as different archetypal fields exist. And Yoram Kaufman, you've heard it many times now, he was really against looking at archetypes as just a shadow side of each other. Saturn and Pluto, from Puer to the Senex, they're just flips of each other. He said, why? They are separate entities. Let each of them exist as separate entities. It's our need to want to blend everything. It's our fear of saying these things really do exist on their own. Now, taking it home to where we want to go. What happened here in America, Susanna, I'm sure you all heard about it by now, with this incredible rampage this went on. You got to say that whatever is in this person, there's got to be something about evil. Am I looking to project it onto them? No, I'm looking at ontologically. The need and the desire to kill hundreds and hundreds of people. I mean, apparently with all the machine guns he had on it, he could have killed thousands of people. Is that desire ever going to go away? Have we ever reduced the impact of that in human history? Has that human urge ever been reduced? I don't think so. And I tell you, I'm going to give you a big clinical piece, and then I'll move on in a few minutes and hand this over to our presenters here tonight. And again, this may seem offensive to some people, but so be it. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not meant to be offensive. It's meant to be clinical observation. I find that let me back up. The human psyche is really not prepared at this point in our evolutionary development to handle severe trauma or handle evil. Okay? So again, expiate, project, act out, be possessed by, all these different things we do when it's constellated. I have found over 35 years of clinical practice that one relatively common defense or refuge for people that are dealing with terrible trauma, number one, and terrible homicidal urges, number two, is running towards an Eastern religion. Again, I'm not looking to step on toes. I'm not looking to whatever. I'm just telling you what I found, okay? So here it is that. This is not my personal judgment. It's not me getting on a rant about Eastern religion. I'm not going. I'm telling you what I found in the same way Darwin did when he went to that, whatever the island was he went to. He wrote down what he found so he wouldn't forget it. I'm telling you what I found over 35 years. The majority of non-Eastern religious people, native Eastern religion people, that then find a refuge in that, often do so because there's so much talk in Eastern religion about nonviolence, non-duality, about peace. It's an understandable place to go to when you're filled with terror. I want to share a dream today that came from a client that just hit this so deeply. It's a dream. Somebody who's ending analysis. There may be 2-3 year analysis. And Suzanne, it's actually the case I was presenting to the Australian group last year. We were following one case for like a year. Anyway, she has a dream in which a husband and wife, they are either Middle Eastern with the coloring or Mediterranean, very dark, complexion, could be Mediterranean, the coloring, whatever. Anyway, this couple has just lost a daughter. The daughter was murdered. Now, this is all about patterns, okay? That's where I'm going. So it's all about patterns here, archetypal patterns. And our work is trying to observe archetypal patterns, okay? So anyway, in the dream, the daughter was murdered. Not only was she murdered, she was cut up into many pieces. Many of us are parents here, and it's something we can't imagine. First you have the death of a child, which is something, please, it's a world unto itself, and then to have the kid slaughtered and cut up into pieces. So the dreamer, just kind of cut to the chase in the dream, the dreamer takes out a large swath of silk and wraps it around the mother. As a sari, is that the word, guys? The Indian
Yeah.
wraps it around as a sari and pins it all the right way. You know, apparently it's quite an elaborate ritual to do the sari. And the dream, she's doing it just perfectly. So she wraps it all. It takes quite a while to do it. And she feels like she's bringing peace to the other woman. And the dreamer wakes up. And she says, I feel so peaceful from the dream. And then she goes on to tell me the story in her own life. She said, anything come up about the issue of children, life, anything like that? And she said, yeah, well, my son was born like 40 years ago. The son was born with an umbilicus wrapped around his neck. And the doctors immediately took the baby away from her. She was a young 19-year-old kid when she had a baby. Took the child away, whatever they do. I don't know if they're surgical. Dick, is it surgical to remove the umbilicus? They cut it off or what?
No, normally, you have to separate the.
But you cut it with knives and all?
Yeah, you clamp both sides and then cut it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So apparently they took the baby away in real life. This is the dreamer's history. They took the baby away. They did, Dr. Ott saying, they surgically removed the umbilicus. And doctors came back and said, well, his son has an enlarged heart. He's probably going to die. She's out of her mind. I'm screaming. She said, I wanted to scream, give me my baby. I want to hold my baby. And I thought my baby's going to die, but everything's in the umbilicus and then the large heart. And she starts crying in the session, weeping in the session. 40 years ago, right? Now, let me pause here. If we look at this story as a fairy tale, which we're going to be looking at a fairy tale tonight with the two presenters, can somebody tell me, what do you see in the story? This is one of the most incredible dreams about trauma I've seen. Trauma, and I don't want to put the other words because I'm going to give too much away right now. I will say it once we have a little brief discussion about it. What do you guys see in this story?
Well, I guess.
You had Aurelia?
Oh, sure. Just that the image of the wrapping of the umbilical cord seems parallel to the wrapping of the sari. They seem like the same thing.
Okay, let's do an exercise for a minute. Is that conjecture or fact? Is it similar? This is not about just you. Oh, hello, Robin. Welcome on. Welcome. So is that conjecture? By conjecture, what I mean is when we look at images, and we do our work of amplifying an image, okay? And we then see is the current image part of the archetypal field of, like, say somebody's flying in a plane, so is that the story of Icarus, because Icarus flew? Is it the story of Phaeton flew? So because many times, and again, it's not about you really, it's about the whole world of translation. Okay? Many times we take a lot of liberties with images. We say, well, it's kind of like that. This little statue, which I've had for about 30 years, actually I got it from South America many years ago. We'll say this little wooden statue of a beggar man, that's kind of like Christ on the cross. Well, no, it's not. It may feel like it to you, but it's not. It's a very different story. And I love this little thing. So when you say wrapped around the neck and the baby, the umbilicus, and wrapping the sari, are they the same story? Not at all. Two very different things. Yes, it's wrapping. And that's where, again, the more we learn about the discipline, you say, okay, look, conjecture or fact. Conjecture means it's a hypothesis. It's an interesting read of something, but is it really that story? Something wrapped around the neck is telling you that, something had gone awry in the birth process. I mean, again, Dr. I could explain all the medical details, or maybe others can in the group. I don't have all those facts. But it's telling you where something went wrong. And then wrapping the body in the sari, it's not something that went wrong. See the difference, Aurelia?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
that's what's
thank you.
No, you're welcome. It's very powerful, and this is for all of us, because many times, again, we take tremendous liberty with images. And there's this module is all about archetypal patterns. And one of the things I'm excited about in this particular module is really doing application, that we're really going to work, especially those of you that are new in the program and some of the old timers now, we're really going to do our work of how do you read a story? And one thing we do is we get into conjecture. And one of the best lines from that is from the movie My Cousin Vinny. Remember My Cousin Vinny? When my little heartthrob is on the stand, Marissa Tomei, who, by the way, we share a birthday. I said, everyone knows it, so if you want to send me a birthday card, send it to both of me and Marissa. She's on the stand, and she's an expert with cars, and the whole thing, and they're trying to figure out who did this robbery. And certain tire tracks that were left on the scene of the accident. And Marissa says, well, the car of those boys could not have left those tracks. And the lawyer said, Miss Mona Lisa DeVita, is that conjecture or is that fact? It's fact. It's fact. It's not conjecture. And then she could do a kind of sassy Brooklyn girl. Oh, yeah, it's fact. Do you know anything about cars? Yeah. What do you do? I know how to do a tranny. I know how to do a brake job. I know how to overhaul an entire motor. I know how to rebuild the carburetor, the carby. I guess you know about cars. So it's the difference between conjecture. And really, in many ways, the entire practice of psychoanalysis is built on conjecture. And something Robert Lang's and something Urim really understood. And so when you begin going to dominance, you see the difference now? Or really, there's a certain dominant to the wrapped around your neck. We'll say it's the same as Medusa. It's not the same as Medusa. Well, there's snakes around her. It's a different story. And then a sari, well, is there a dominant to wearing a sari? Or are there different saris for different occasions? That I don't know the answer. Anybody know the answer to that? Somebody probably spent time in
Yes, very many different ones.
There are different ones. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is a ritual to how you wear it and how you pin it and all that, right? It's a lot of work to know what to do. Okay, so now, all that being said, you see this dream image of this mother that lost her daughter. And the dreamer wraps his sari around her and feels tremendous peace. The dreamer feels peace. Somebody tell me what's going on here. As a pattern analyst now. And this is why I'll tell you, cut the part of the story. This is one of the things I love about this work. How much you can read when you understand universal patterns. It's profound, and I cannot ever say enough about the profundity of being able to read these patterns.
I have a question, Michael. I have a question. Did your dreamer get interested in Eastern religion?
Very good. What do you think the answer is?
I think she did, and that was her comfort, because she lost a child, and the mother in the dream lost a child.
She had about 15 years ago, she turned to Eastern religions. And about 3 days before the dream, she was preparing for a 7-day silent retreat. Now, I don't know. For me, I don't know what you talk about in a silent retreat. I don't get it. Hey, what are you going for lunch? You want to play some hoop? You want to go fishing? We're not talking.
Michael, for sure, it's not going to work for you.
There's a pattern reader. But anyway, she was going, and I forget the teacher's name, the guy she'd been studying with, like one of those Indian names. And so where's he from in India? Oh, he's from Cleveland, Ohio. Well, you got a good kielbasa in Cleveland, I know that, you know. But apparently, she said he was an enlightened figure. He did all of the stuff a lot of people do in the early part of life, in 20 and 30, now I think 50, 60, and he's become enlightened, and he lectures all over the world. And he teaches. I would like to be paid for doing a silent lecture. That's one of my goals. That's what I know really. When people come and sit there and listen to me say nothing, they pay me to the damn check.
I don't think he'd be able to stay quiet.
Like a pantomime. But anyway, so she's been in this, and I said, okay, I don't want to say what I said. So take it to the next step, Georgiana.
Take the next step. Well, I'm saying that she had lost a child. A woman in the dream has lost a child, and she's comforting her by wrapping the sari around her. And in her own life, she's figuratively wrapping the sari of Eastern religion around herself.
Very good.
As a comfort.
Okay, now let's go slowly. Now we can be cute and say, sorry, I'm sorry. Me dispatch. Very sorry. That's playing with words. You know, it's silly. It's not that interesting. Yeah. Now, here's the key. When you look at archetypal fields, what is it about her wrapping the sari around this woman? A few things should grab you, even if you're brand new to the program, and those of you that are in here for a while. There are a few pieces that should stand out like fingernails on a blackboard. Now, it's very subtle, though, so maybe it won't be fingernails on a blackboard. I'll take that image back there. But a few things really should be standing out. Give me a couple. But you got any? What stands out when you see this dreamer wrapping the sari around this couple, around the woman?
Well, somebody else is doing the wrapping, and I don't understand saris completely, but I think they wrap themselves as opposed to somebody else doing it.
Is that accurate, Evie? Can somebody else wrap you?
Yes.
Okay, so somebody can wrap you, so that's not
Somebody
funny.
can wrap you, or you can wrap yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
But the child has been murdered and cut up into many pieces.
Now, hold on. This is a very specific question right now, as a pattern analyst question. When you see the dreamer, we're going to do a freeze frame on one part of the image here, okay? This dreamer wrapping the sari around this woman. Talk to me.
Michael, I think that this is something foreign for her. She usually doesn't use the sari. It's not of her own culture.
Say it again.
The sari is not the dress of her culture.
Of whose culture? Who?
The Indian culture.
You hear what she's saying, guys? The line broke up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, making a fabulous comment. That she says the sari is not part of the dreamer's culture, or who else is not part of whose culture? The mother.
Dead child.
Well, the mother. And the dream made a point of saying that the couple is very dark, Mediterranean dark or Middle Eastern dark, for a point. And you take this seriously, and you realize, well, but they weren't Indian in the dream, or they weren't I don't know the politically correct language, so I'm sorry, but they weren't Pakistani, or an Indian, East Indian, whatever. If it's either Mediterranean, she said, I think they are the Greek or Syrian in the dream. So it's perfect what you're setting as. It's a lot of noise here. Okay. It's too far afield from the dreamer's orientation. Now, even though the dreamer, and here's the clue, the dreamer, number one, does not know how to wrap a sari in the outer world. Number two, it's not her culture. And number three, she's wrapping something around a woman that's just been through unimaginable grief. God, I don't know what that noise is, guys.
614.
Mute the person on the phone.
4, yeah.
614.
What is that? I didn't hear it. Okay. And anyway, somebody's in unimaginable grief. You're wrapping them in something that's so foreign from them. It's totally alien. You see how subtle it is? This is where he said, well, how do you feel about it? Would you like it? And the dream would tell you, how do you feel about it? I love it. I love it. It's my new religious orientation for the past 15 years. I do all these workshops. I do a couple of times a year. I do 2 silent retreats a year. And then we have a satsang, is that what it's called? Something like that? Satsang. We meet every month as a group. And I love it. It's my religion. It's what I really identify with. So we can see in the dream, and you're totally right, Georgiana and Inez about this, that the dream represents a manic flight. So what has she found? What is she really wrapping herself in? Something that's alien to her culture, to her own religious orientation. And now, what is the slaughtered daughter? The slaughtered daughter represents both the horror that her kid lived through. Remember, so you don't know the case. The husband was a heroin addict. Here she is giving birth to the baby, and the husband comes in the hospital shooting heroin in his veins. Okay, you got the story right there. Also, the slaughtered little girl represents what she's done to her own femininity by having a false alignment to the self. Such a powerful story. And I said there, he said, look, we're in the termination phase, and when I terminate with somebody, I say, give me at least 4 sessions. Let's have 4 sessions to terminate, okay? And we're in the first or second of that, I think the first one. And I said, look, in now 2 years of analysis, I haven't wanted to bring up this issue because I know it's a real fragile point in her psyche about this thing. I said, I haven't wanted to touch it. The psyche brought it down. And this is where you realize, my God, there's a sense of timing in the unconscious that is so profound, absolutely profound. And I said, I'm going to tell you something that is, you're going to disagree with me, and that's fine, but I'm not interested in locking horns. I'm not going there. I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight about any of this stuff. I'm just going to tell you what I read, what I hear in the stream. And I said exactly pretty much what we said as a group here. The first thing, no, argue out of my religion and all this kind of stuff. And my Cleveland board guru, who's now got Indian names and all of this stuff. I said, I'm not even trying to argue that with you. I'm saying, I want you to just go home now and think about what a woman who's going through that kind of grieving, what does she need? And as you said in the dream, you went home feeling great from the funeral, the wake there. What are you feeling great about? This woman just went through the most unimaginable horror. Is it really great? So you begin to see the manic issues here all through it. And the other thing, and I'll stop here in a minute. One of the major things that hopefully you all learn as a pattern analyst is do, re, mi, ah. It doesn't go. 2, 4, 12, 8, 4, 7, 5. It doesn't match the code. There are codes. They're universal codes. Something that Dr. Roth's really great with, the Pythagorean mean and the Fibonacci codes and his wonderful, wonderful original work on seashell design. These are all native codes, and you find archetypes they are innate codes. Now, the copy of my book in Italian is a codice innato. If you say, I'll show you the Italian version. The codice innato. It means the innate code. It's a better title than Feel, Form, and Fate. They got it right, the Italian version. Mm-hmm. So anyway, when you begin looking at codes, you begin to look at what fits the story. Let me see. I'm going to go to a Chinese restaurant tonight. Okay, I like some, what do you call it, dim sum, whatever those things are. Give me some of those. I like those. Give me some nice wonton soup. I want some fried rice. And give me some really good Italian bread. And then give me some olive oil to dunk my Italian bread in. And give me a couple of calamari in the marinara sauce. Oh no, these Chinese are so we don't do that here. Oh, I like Italian bread. I like to dunk my Italian bread in olive oil. Well, come on, it's a silly example, but you get the point. That you realize there are these innate codes. Certain things go with certain things. And part of your work is learning about these innate codes. And especially what you begin to look at is dissonance. Do, re, mi, zzz. Whoa, what was that scratch? Something scratched there. Like that, something scratched. So here, when you begin to see it, and look, and I know this may go against a lot of your intuitive faculties or your feeling side. Well, isn't it wonderful? Oh my God, the sorry India. India's all about spirituality. Well, India's not only about spirituality. It's a lot of things that go with India. But the point is, it ain't your culture. Now, it doesn't mean we can't reach outside of ourselves. I love Chinese food, and I love going to Switzerland. It's not my native culture. I love it. I loved my time in Australia and Colombia and in Moscow. I loved it. None of those are my native culture, though, but I love experiencing the food, the culture, the dress, the spirit of the place. But you begin to realize that there are dominants in life. And there are dominants, as we're going to hear in the story tonight, I'm sure, there are dominants in fairy tales. And you become, in many ways, you develop an expertise in looking at coherent patterns and dissonant patterns and moments of dissonance in stories. It's a tremendous gift. So if you just went with your feelings with this, how does it feel? Oh, it feels so beautiful. Oh my God, I got the sari. I feel I'm in sacred India. I feel all the beauty. Look at the gorgeous colors and the gorgeous silk. Oh my God, everyone felt so peaceful in the dream. Well, wait a minute. Is it really where you live? Now, again, it doesn't mean we can't reach out of ourselves, but often the dream will hit that note to make a very, very powerful point. Okay, so the last thread here, if I can hold it, is the thread of evil. Evil exists as an archetypal entity. And hopefully that, yes, we can read. And this is what all the reporters are trying to do right now, all the forensic specialists. They're trying to find a pattern. And they just found one, apparently. You hear about what they found? What's it called? ANTIFA? A-N-T-I-F-A or something? It's anti-government, something that they're finding that there was a lot of paraphernalia in the hotel room of this.
Oh, Antifa.
Antifa, that's Antifa, which is some kind of civil war they want to make in America, right? What is it, Aurelia?
Antifa.
I'm trying to unmute myself. I hadn't seen that about the events this week, but Antifa is also the movement of folks who are anti-fascist and who are resisting in many ways against tyranny, against oppression, against some of the things that we're starting to see from the government. So they're also the folks who are showing up to counter the Nazis at the various protests and actions.
What? What's the word? Counter the what?
The Nazis.
Nazis. Oh, really? Oh, okay. So
yeah,
well, there's a story. There's some kind of story here.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what this guy meant by it, and maybe he had his own version or his own perversion, perhaps.
Yep.
But that's what I would think it is, just from what I know about it.
Thank you. So what we try to look at then is what are the patterns, and can any of the patterns be recognizable? And that's why they always talk to the neighbor. Did you see anything? Did you recognize anything? Anything crazy going on? And aside from having a arsenal, in his house, thousands of rounds of bullets and 18 million guns, there's nothing strange. Well, there you go. So anyway,
oddly, they had a review on NPR about a neighbor of his, a woman, who said he was just a really very nice neighbor, seemed like a normal guy, friendly, like nothing in his energy field that would indicate.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, but they said he had a temper. They said he had a very bad temper.
Well, this particular woman didn't comment about that, but maybe others did. I don't know.
Yeah. So, again, what we're saying here is what we try to do is read a pattern. Sometimes there's no pattern to read. I mean, sometimes you can't predict this stuff. But the last piece to all of this is to say that there is an archetype of violence and evil that exists in the world. and may always exist. That's through all these little pieces I've given. Like, this is where I want to end up with this. And I'm not trying to end my portion on a dark note, but it's a reality that we've had it since the beginning of time. And moments of peace are wonderful, but we know this stuff has been there from the beginning. How many images and stories do we have of the light and the dark fighting against each other and wars? So anything as a pattern reader, as an individual, whatever we could do to be able to observe the rumblings, the constellation of this, it's a tremendous contribution. So,
Michael, I like to point, the only pattern they found besides the arsenal is his father.
His what?
His father.
Yes.
His father.
Yeah.
His father was
Father was a
actually
criminal.
a criminal, and no sympathy, and not thinking twice about robbing banks or being dangerous. So there's a little pattern there.
There's something. Yeah. I mean, a lot of what forensics are about. I mean, if I had another career, I would get into forensics. I've been interested in that for a long time. So that sort of work. I really like that. Where it's all about, it's really all about reading patterns. When you look at a lot of these TV shows, Crime Scene, and get the names of them right now, but Bones and other on TV, it's all about this. No, look, that's my open on. Go ahead.
There was a forensic psychologist that she did say that sometimes that's inherited, that kind of feeling,
Well, where they did find it was in, what's his name? Jeffrey Dahmer, the cannibal that.
Yes.
Everything was fine. Everything was fine. And they said the mother and father were great people until it came out. The mother was on some massive drugs when she got pregnant with him. It sounds like there probably could have easily been a biological piece to his madness. Yeah. So, okay. Now we're going to have our two people presenting tonight, Evie and Jennifer, on a fairy tale. So why don't you walk us through what you're going to do, and then let's hear your work.
So Jennifer.
Hey, Evie.
Yeah, hi. Well, so what happened was Jennifer presented the fairy tale and I found the visual images, and I thought between the tale itself and the images that we could kind of look at what it's really speaking about. So Jennifer, maybe you want to start because you began with the tale itself, and we can just kind of pair up and see where we go.
Okay, well, I understood we were going to look at the very beginning of it, the opening of it, and see how much of the tale or the direction, what the story is, just by reading the beginning. So I think I'll start there.
Wonderful.
Just read the first paragraph. So this is an Irish fairy tale, a Celtic fairy tale. It's Conla and the Fairy Maiden. And I think probably a lot of people have read it, but here it goes. Conla of the fiery hair was son of Con of the 100 Fights. One day, as he stood by the side of his father on the height of Usna, he saw a man clad in strange attire coming towards him. So there's your opening.
Okay, read it second time, please. Read it one more time.
Conla of the fiery hair was son of Con of the 100 Fights. One day he stood by the side of his father on the height of Usna. He saw a maiden clad in strange attire coming towards him.
Okay. Now, I recommend everybody goes back to read or reread von Franz's work, Interpretation of Fairy Tales. That's the first one she did in, not really a series, but the first she did in what ended up being maybe 15, 20 books on fairy tale interpretation. The feminine fairy tale, shadow and evil, creation myth, and fairy tales. And he will often focus on the beginning. So let me say something about the beginning of a story. Those of you that are in the dream group, most of you have been in the dream. If you are not in it, let us know. Because we begin, I think, 2 weeks and get ready to close. Registration is about closing right now on that. The opening of a dream, the opening of a fairy tale introduces you to the feel of the story, to what is it that's constellated, what archetype we're in. So when von Franz begins and saying, okay, the beginning of the story is telling us that this is a story of the mother and the son, or the father and the mother, or whatever it might be. You begin to see that you're reading the story holographically. So within the story of the mother-daughter, while we're not going to predict what all the features are, you can say there are certain regularities to the mother-daughter story. Then you want to find out what's the valence. In other words, is this the story of the mother-daughter that with wonderful love and generosity? Or is the other side where it's a story of like the beast and his mother, and Aphrodite? And then if we're in that story, you could be making some very poignant comments about if you're in the field of the devouring mother, story one, the field of the generative mother, number two, certain things are likely to unfold in that story because it's part of a code. Not a humanly made code, part of a nature's code, that there is the archetype of this. So that's why we do the beginning. And in the dream work, I shifted it by saying, when Jung talks about the exposition, the opening of a dream, I've extended that exposition to also include the word threshold. Because as we cross the threshold, we cross the border into Florida, the border of Oregon, the border of North Carolina, the border of New York, and you enter a whole different field. But you're transiting from one to another, and our work is to understand what do we transit from and to, okay? So now let's do it real slowly. Just the first couple of words.
Conla of the fiery hair.
Okay, so right there, what do we have?
We have a man.
Very good. So right away with the man in the story, I mean, no, I'm not kidding. This is really how you begin this.
We're the masculine.
So already we know we have a story about what? A man, but what does that tell us?
About the masculine archetype? Or
beautiful, beautiful. This is going to be some story about masculine development or regression, but it's all about the archetypal field of the masculine. Now, you say, well, what the hell good is that? That's no rocket science. Well, you know what? When Kaufman talks about orient, it's such a brilliant way of framing things. He said, I want to be oriented. Let's have an orientation. Are we in the south of America? Are we in the north? Are we in the southern part of Colombia? Are we in the northern part of Colombia? Where are we? Are we in Siberia? Are we in Moscow? And you get oriented in very specific ways. So we see already this is going to be the story of the masculine. Now, could it also be about the masculine and the woman? Yes, of course it's. So, Barbara Hanna writes a very important piece in Fairy Tales. I think it's a book called 4 Lectures in Jungian Psychology. Barbara Hanna, H-A-N-N-A-H. And she says, you want to read the story of the masculine or the story of the masculine and the feminine? And she says, both can be true. You can read it both ways. Okay, so already a certain orientation. So, okay, story of the man. What happens next?
Next, it says he was son of Khan of the 100 Fox. So he's
okay, somebody else jump in now. What do you got? Max, when you're son of, what do we have for you?
We got the son of. So, we're in the relationship, I would guess, between the father and the son.
You're not guessing. You're making a good read of the story. You're not guessing at all. You're reading a pattern. Very good. So it's telling us right away that we're in the field of father-sons, and we want to then find out what happens to the father-son. Now, we know a lot about father-sons in mythology. And I want to get one of my colleagues to give his dissertation lecture on Oedipus. I think we've talked about it in our group a few times. The whole life of Oedipus was the result of the curse of the father. I don't know if you know that story. It's an incredible tale. The father did some terrible things, and he was cursed. And the king that cursed him said, what's going to happen to you is your son is going to kill you and sleep with the mother, have babies with your wife, the mother. And you see the whole life unfolded according to this curse. So we now have a sense of father-sons here. So I'm interested because I wonder what's going to happen in the story. And it's a wonderful way of working stories by taking it that slowly, especially in the beginning. Like you're playing notes, and you hear that sound. You play the sharp with the flat. You play the minor. You do a minor chord. And you begin to hear the sound, you hear the rhythms, you hear what notes go together, what notes adds a little piece of dissonance to that chord. like certain chords you want to put the seventh or ninth in it, have a little strange little sound to it. Makes it really interesting. Like if you ever listen to music from the Ivory Coast of Africa, they always have dissonance in it. Very strange. That really shakes up the music. So, and it shakes your ear up, like wakes your ear up. Okay, so this person, son of, good. What now? What comes next?
Well, I would like to just say at this point, their names are really rich with information of who these people are. I don't, if you want to talk about that or if you want to go on to the next event.
See, this is where my hearing breaks down. I couldn't really catch the names.
Okay, well, his name is Kanla of the fiery hair, and his father's name is Khan of the 100 fights.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. So what would you do with that? Excellent.
What I did, I looked up what the name Khan meant, and it's a Welsh name for like leader or king. So he's the tribe, he's the chief of the tribe. So here we've got the chief. And Khan La means mythical son of Khan.
Wow.
So there's a suggestion that his son is of an archetype.
Wow. Wonderful scholarship. Excellent.
And his son is son of the fiery hair. And if you think about fire, red hair, I thought of fire being an alchemical element that breaks things apart at a chemical level. Also, the head on fire would be thinking or maybe a lot of energy. And that his father's name is Khan of 100 fights. I see someone who, when they encounter the other, that they go straight to them into a fight and either try to assimilate them into their way or destroy them. So if you're fighting, you're very aggressive and you're trying to make someone else do what you want them to do.
Good. And the father of 100 fights, what are you oriented to about the life of the father?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If the father's name is something Khan of 100 fights,
right? What
are we oriented to about the world of the father? What world is he in? What is he known as?
He's the warrior.
The warrior, exactly. So it's a warrior father.
Yeah, he's a warrior father.
Now again, what we're going to do with this, we don't know. But you see how you go through it slowly to begin developing that ear. Really developing your ear for story here. Okay. What happens next?
One day, as he stood by the side of his father on the height of Uzna.
Okay, right there. So what do you got, anybody? Evie, what about you? You're a partner in this. Read that line again. Please, read that line again, Jennifer.
Oh, it's one day as he stood by the side of his father on the height of Uzna, and that's U-S-N-A, and it's a place that is high. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mountain or a cliff. It doesn't say. Just the height of Uzna.
Okay. Evie, what do you do with that piece right there? He's standing with the father on this high place.
Right. So they're getting some kind of perspective. They're looking from a broader distance on something. And the boy, the young man, Kanla with the fiery hair, he sees a maiden.
Now, before we don't go to maiden yet. Just stay just with this, please. This is part of the wonderful discipline. Just go slowly.
Okay.
Just with it. Remember, we're reading holographically.
Okay, so they're standing at a distance from
together
from what they normally know, and they're looking together from above.
Okay.
And they're looking down.
So what do you have with this?
I think what you have is, so this relationship between the father and son, but suddenly they're in a different place and they're looking together, but they may be seeing different things.
Okay. What do you know from the scene that's going to happen in the story? Here's where you're reading codes. You're reading patterns. The father and son are standing together on high a mountain together. What's going to happen in the story at some point?
Perhaps they'll separate.
Well, or they'll have to go down the mountain. You know.
They got to go down, but the big thing is, in all likelihood, it's going to be a separation because the son and the daughter, they've got to separate from the father at some point. So the fairy tale is highlighting that together here. It's a very powerful image. Father and son. Again, it could easily be mother and daughter, daughter and father, whatever. But once you see that, you're already attuned. Like again, hearing a piece of music, tasting a really good glass of wine, you're attuned to something. In that every son and every daughter needs to emancipate from the parent.
Yeah.
And now we also have a clue about the father. The father's world is a warrior. It's the father lives in the world of, what can we say? I don't want to just say violence, but you know, he's a warrior of Mars. You know, if you look at the archetype of war, that's his field. So you wonder now, what is the son going to do with the archetype of war in his life as he begins his journey? Now, okay, now let's anticipate. What are a couple of trajectories that could be taken? Lily, what would you say? A couple of trajectories for this son. When we hope he's going to separate, he could do a number of different things. Like what?
Well, he could align with the father, or he could separate from the father.
Beautiful.
He could notice something different, hear something different, which is what happens in the first lines of the story.
Beautiful. If he stays with the father, it's a story of what psychologically?
Fear.
Fear is part of it. What else?
Repetition of the father's
Very
psyche.
good. Very good. It's repetition of the father's world, and the son never made it. This is why if you look at a lot of businesses, father-sons, father-daughter businesses, it's a major issue. I had a colleague that did a lot of consulting. He specialized in family business. And the majority of them, they were just so fraught with problems because the kid couldn't get out. If you want to see an incredible story about this, and I actually presented at a conference, I think about 2 years ago, maybe some of you were here. If you go on YouTube and, what's it called? Kitchen Nightmares. You know, Chef Ramsay? Chef Ramsay? Yeah, this is the one, I think it's Sal's Pizzeria.
Yeah.
The Sal's Pizzeria, it's a Brooklyn pizzeria, and it's an incredible story where the son couldn't leave. And Ramsey made really a brilliant intervention. So again, the YouTube clip to check, I think it's called Sal's Pizzeria. You go into Chef Ramsay, Kitchen Nightmares. That's the name of the TV series he did, Kitchen Nightmares, and it's Sal's Pizzeria, Brooklyn Pizzeria. And it's an incredible story about this boy, he was probably a 40-year-old man, but he was a boy because he never could leave the father or the mother. So now we see that the whole story is imbued with a very rich archetypal legacy. It's a story of what happens to the offspring of the parent. Can they make a life on their own or not?
It's interesting that somebody made the comment about him having red hair.
Yeah.
Red hair came to me as red is a color of rust, stuck to the father.
Yeah.
But then to an aviator, fiery hair means your hair is on fire, means you leave rapidly.
Oh, really?
Separate.
Oh, my God.
Wait, it means you do what rapidly?
Hair, when you fly somewhere with your hair on fire, means you're going as fast as you can.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Oh,
And
wow.
we know your name is not Brenda, right, Larry?
No, yeah, no.
The screen says Brenda. I mean, okay, we know you're not Brenda. It's live. It's great. And also, red is what planet is red associated with?
Mars.
It's Mars, which is the planet of war, the god of war.
Right.
So we have a number of pieces here. Okay. So if we pause for a second, we already have a pretty, maybe we'll continue next time. We still have more time, but I don't want to get anything get lost. So if we need to, either we'll continue next time as well if we run out of time tonight. So, okay, so we have all of this already in the story. Now I'm interested. I want to find out what's going to happen to this kid. But what happens next? They're up there on the thing together. What happens next?
Michael, before you ask that question, I would like us to consult the visual image because I think it'll inform.
Great. Let's see it.
So there's two images that I sent. One is the cover of the book called Zindora Children's Classics, and it's the cover with the fairy maiden, Conla and the fairy maiden. Does everybody see that one?
Yes.
So that image of her is what he is hearing as he stands on the promontory with his
wow.
So the call to him from her is significant.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Thank you for jumping in. Okay, tell us that again, because I don't have that image. So tell it to me again.
Okay, so it's a black background. It's the cover of the book of Celtic Tales. And it's the fairy maiden, so she's got wings that are sort of gossamer. Her left hand is extended into the air. And she's holding a kind of scepter with a circular shape on the top of it in her right hand, very delicately. And she's standing on her right leg, and her left one seems to be poised behind her. It looks like her breasts are maybe bare, and she's beckoning.
Wow, and then where is she? So they're up on a mountain, the father and son. Where is she?
So she is in relation, he hears her voice.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, Anastasia, great. Let's pause right there. Anastasia, what do you do with that? How do you understand this? You still awake over there, Anastasia? You got to give you a little caffeine. I think she's sleeping. Lillian, what do you do with that? When you hear, he sees the beckoning of the woman. What is it about? Anybody?
Feminine, archetype of feminine, but also that relates to the red that Jennifer pointed out, that alchemists relate to the color red. One of the ways they relate to it is intuitive ability with the eyes to see and the ear to hear.
Okay, good. But we're informed about something. Jody, what do you got here?
Well, first of all, I mean, just to go back to the two of them standing together, certainly there's this tension that's held in the two of them together, and that tension is it implies this separation that is to come, because if they were just going to be together, there wouldn't really be a story. So what I see coming is, well, to go a little bit further in the story, he, the son, both sees and hears the woman, the fairy queen. And the father...
One pause for a second. Do we know if the father can hear her too, or just the son hears her?
Just the son at first. Because, I mean, later on in the story, if I can jump ahead, that's why I was responding to the image, because in the story, the father can't see her, but he employs his druid to banish her.
Oh my, the father does.
Yeah.
Oh, is this incredible how the story's getting so rich? Okay, so
it's interesting that the image that is the cover of the book, but the fairy tale is actually from, I think they said it was the 7th century. So the image looks a little bit newer, but I mean, how else can you portray the dismay that the old king has, that his son is being called to this, the son is being called by the feminine.
Oh, look at that, Inez. Thank you for doing it. That's great.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, man, you guys are so fantastic.
So Inez, if you can show the second image, you'll see in the background the king's dismay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great, Evie. Wow, thank you for these images.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, so
Oi,
there's the...
Oi!
Yeah. Yeah. But also in the beginning, there is a missing feminine between the father and the son.
So who is this one? This is the son right here with his hand on the head?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
son
It's the
and
father
the
in the
fairy
back.
maiden. The father.
Oh, this is incredible. Okay.
The father is the one with the crown in the background. I think the druid is the
Yeah.
one in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the druid.
Can somebody now tell me, Evie, so tell us, what's happening here?
Well, obviously, so we have the foreground and the background. We have a lot of dramatic activity and a lot of energy charge between the masculine and the feminine, between Conla and the fairy maiden. And
This
then
is so rich.
at a distance is the druid, who appears to be trying to do something but maybe is not very effective, with the king holding his scepter and kind of witnessing the entire scene, but he's the furthest removed from this moment between the two.
Phenomenal, Evie. Wonderful.
Except that the druid is acting on the king's order.
Right.
Okay, so now let's, thank you, ladies. This is a fantastic, Jennifer and Evie. Thank you so much. This is so rich and so great for us to learn. Okay, in this scene, just identify the characters here. What do you got, Jennifer? Who are they?
Well, in the front is the
Right
the
here,
fairy,
this one we're looking at.
the fairy maiden is the lady in the front.
Yeah.
And it is true. So they were standing there, and Conla of the fiery hair is the one with his arms stretched out towards her, and he sees her coming, and she's clad in strange clothing, is what it says. So she is something he has never seen anything like her before.
Okay, so let's just go through it. So we have the woman, we have the son. Who else do we have? The other two figures.
So in the back there, the old man with his hands out like he's giving a benediction is the druid Coron. Now, I also looked up Coron's name, and I think it's important when you start hearing more about where the fairy maiden comes from. But Coron means crescent moon, and he is a wizard or a priest, and he is called upon by the king, who's in the very back with the crown on. The king, I could just tell you, the king is worried that his son is going to go away with the fairy maiden. She's going to take him.
Let's go very slowly. Slowly, you're getting very sophisticated.
Yeah.
You're getting ahead. You're doing beautifully, but let's slow it up a bit more.
So let's read.
Hold on. How many figures do we have here?
4.
4.
You have a quaternity.
Okay. Now it's a story about the son, right? The boy.
The story's about
the son and then the feminine. But remember we talked about it in terms of fairy tales. It's so important to look at the number of figures in the story. In the male psyche, you generally have 3 men and a woman. In the female psyche, you generally have 3 women and a man. The opposite representing the contrasexual. Okay, you remember that term? You guys, Larry, good with that term, contrasexual? Georgiana? So in the male psyche, you need the presence of a feminine somewhere. In the female psyche, you need the presence of a male. So what we have here is the 4th coming in the figure of the feminine. Now, what is her role in this, do you think, in the story? Now, Jennifer, back to you. What's her role here?
Her role is to come and take Conla out of his situation to a new place.
Pause right there. Beautiful. Like if you put a voice and say, let me see. Maybe I'll stay with my father and the old druid. Okay, that's what, or go with this beautiful babe. Let me think about that one a bit. Okay, I can stay with my father. This old man, get this beautiful woman beckoning, is gorgeous. I mean, in many ways, you can see where sexuality, I mean, not that it's about sex, I'm playing around, but sexuality and eros is really a way to break the spell. When for that person that's embedded in the family structure, they can't get out. You know what I'm saying? That, wow, I'm getting the hell out of town. I'm leaving home. I'm going to be with her. I'm going to be with him tonight, And it really breaks the spell, and you need something that powerful. This is just, Evie, thank you for the imagery. And Jennifer, I can't say enough about how I'm loving this.
Is there an element of universal codes in that this relates back to your story, Michael? Could she be Middle Eastern looking back through a sari?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it could be. I didn't catch that. You're right. Yeah.
That's a wrap.
The
Yeah.
veil. That's a good symbol, the veil between the two worlds, because she is from another world.
Yeah.
And he can see her. The old men can't.
Okay.
He's actually touching her veil. He's reaching toward it.
Well,
Is that like in the biblical story of the woman touching Jesus' cloak and he says, "Who's touching me?" You can feel the energy.
yeah. So let me ask the question now, as a pattern analyst. What is this scene telling us?
There's controversy.
The old form is breaking away. We can see where the energy is in the.
Say it again louder. You
So it looks like the prevailing energy is in the front between the fairy and Conla, and the old patriarchy is kind of breaking away. It has less potency, power, and attraction and draw.
say it more simply now. Perfect. Say it more simply.
So the main attraction here is in the front. The two guys in the back are they're fading away.
What is he being pulled away from?
So I would say the old patriarchy, the role
Oh man.
here.
But for a while, he's successful.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the king symbolizes consciousness, and the son is just about to discover the unconscious or the creative unconscious, the femininity.
Well, the king represents what psychologically?
Consciousness.
I think
Executive function.
Well, partly, but that's not the major piece. The king represents what?
order,
Executive function.
power.
How about she's the perturbation in the field?
He is, but we got to understand perturbation of what, though, Judy. I think Evie gave us a good.
The field of the father.
Yeah, the king represents. It's not just consciousness, Nadar. It represents the old order.
Yeah.
The king. I mean, those of you that have seen Dreams of the President, I've seen more in my career than I've seen more in the past year than I've ever seen in my entire career of the president.
Yeah.
It represents the collective order, the collective conscious attitude at a given time. So what we have here is the old order. We see the old men. It's really making the point. This is the old order. And with any old order, what's going to happen at some point, Jody?
What's going to happen?
When there's an old order.
I think. Well, I mean, there's going to be a disintegration of it, and the hope is that the new order will be born and the old order will disintegrate.
Phenomenal. It's a breaking of the old order. And again, remember the proverbial, the king has died, long live the king.
Mm-hmm. So he's the new king. The son is the new king, except he's going to some other realm.
Well, very good. And what's pulling him? The feminine.
The feminine.
The feminine, the soul, psyche. And if you think about it, the father who's a warrior probably doesn't know about the feminine here.
Well, he's afraid of her because that's why he employs the druid.
Very good. Yeah.
So
you see how much information we have already? Let's get everybody back in the screen a minute, okay? Can we, Inez, you know how to do that? I have no idea how to do it. Thank you so much. And thank you, Inez. Where are you? Oh. I mean, you see what we have here? In half an hour, we've uncovered so much, and there's a lot more to say. I want to continue next time, okay, guys?
Look how the tree separates their...
It's a story, and you see in the beginning, when I said, you know what's going to happen. If the father and son are together, you know there's got to be a separation somewhere. Is that intuition? Not intuition. It's codes. It's universal codes. So our job then is to see, and Jody used a great word, perturbation. What's going to be the perturbation? And sometimes it could be the beautiful woman, the fair maiden. And it's not, the maiden in distress. It's not where we're going with this, you know. There's sexist overtones, the misogynistic overtones. Yeah, of course, it's there somewhere. But on an archetypal level, it's saying he's being pulled by something. Probably something, and you see what he's being pulled away. And the image, great idea. Great wherever Evie went to, Evie and Jennifer, to have the combination of the text and the image. Thank you. It's beautiful. So when we see the visual, we really get a glimpse of this is the old order. The old druid and the father, the king father. So it's the old conscious attitude. So the old conscious attitude represents what? What is the nature of the old conscious attitude in the story? And that's what would you say? What's the nature of the old conscious order?
The lack of the feminine.
Well, war first, warring. The warring attitude, which then implies most likely the lack of the feminine, yes. Yeah. And the son is being called on a journey here. And the journey is to break free of this. And you see the old order that, no, man, don't go. Don't go. And actually, this is a lot of Laura Lee's work, a lot of her work on, what's it called? You know the term, it is what, transmogrification? Transmogrification, where we make the feminine look so ugly and terrible because they're afraid of her. They're terrified of the feminine. So the old order here wants to say, ditch the babe and come on home. Ditch that babe. She's nobody. Get the hell out of here. Ditch the girl, and then we gotta, like this throne. You can have this. You can have this throne. You can have this crown. Come on, man. Come on home. And the son is being pulled, and you see in his dream, his gaze is towards the feminine. It's so beautiful. And the gaze is away from the old order. So if you make a diagnostic and prognostic comment about that, you say this already bodes really well for him to leave the old order, but the old order ain't going to give up that easily. So there's going to be some force in the old order trying to pull this guy back.
But Michael, may I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
At this point, how can you say that it bodes well? Because up until this point, before we get into the next paragraph, we don't know if this is a generative feminine or not. And this is not a human female.
Mm-hmm. I say it bodes well because it's taking his gaze away from the old order.
Okay, yes, that I get.
That I got. That to me is very powerful.
Okay.
He seems quite enthralled by her. I'm happy about that. Like if a kid, like your kids are home, say 15 years old, they go, hey, let's stay home, honey. You got a nice party tonight. Mary wants to go out tonight, or Bobby wants to go out tonight. I want to go out with them. Why? You can stay home with me. Why? Why would I want to stay home with you, Mom and Dad, if I can get Bobby or Mary to go out with tonight? And the gang. It's only natural. So the pull. But Bonnie's asking a really important question, which is we always need to make the assessment. Is it a generative feminine or not? I mean, look in the story of Odyssey and the Calypso. When they met the beautiful women, what were the beautiful women in that story? They were the sirens. That was the regressive feminine calling them down, plying them with all. Anything you want, you can have. Anything you want, you can have. And, they had to be able to deal with that. This one, why I would tend to, without knowing any more of the story yet, and that's why I really love going slowly this way, because you can then often anticipate. I would say it's generative because A, it's calling him away from the masculine. B, he's very interested in the old order masculine. Number two, she's very different from the warring archetype. And number three, she seems to be beckoning of another world, the fairy world, That's a different world. And the Celts, probably the best course I had at the Young Institute was on Celtic mythology. It's interesting. Sylvia Pereira did it. She wrote a number of books on it. Sylvia Pereira, and remember all the books, Mist of the Maiden? What's that book?
Mist of Avalon.
Mist of Avalon, thanks. Yeah, Mary Zimmer Bradley. And there were a lot of books that talk about the mist and the veil. You mentioned the veil, Harry. The veil represents the two worlds. And I've used a lot of my writing, lifting the veil, behind the veil, seeing beyond the veil, the veil of conscience, the veil of reality, or whatever. So it's very powerful. So in many ways, I think she represents what's on the other side, what lives in the mist. And if you're in a war, you don't deal with the mist very much. You deal with, aggression and victory and casualties and all that goes to the archetype of war. There's not a lot of time in that world for the mist of Avalon, So she's beckoning him to a very, different world. And again, I'll leave with this. If you look at the contrast between the old order, the two men standing back, no, what are you doing? Come on back. And her, there's such a variance in the worlds that they live in. I like that. So I want to see what's going to happen next. Okay, comments. And the comments about the process right now, about what we're doing. Eve, you go ahead. You got a great smile on your face. What are you thinking?
No, just I think the integration between the textual and the visual are powerful. It's powerful.
Yep.
The textual without the visual doesn't really inform,
No.
I think the visual without the textual is also missing something.
I'm absolutely loving it, and I really thank you both for doing it this way. Any comments about the way we're working on the story?
I just find it really rich to be doing it step by step. I really enjoyed going through it sentence by sentence, and all the other input on it. There's so much in so few words.
Incredible. That's why I say you're reading it holographically, because what you're doing is you're reading a code.
Yeah.
You're reading an archetypal code. And I don't mean code as in someone wrote the scripts or reading the script, whatever. This is a universal story. And you see how much you can infer just by a little bit of information, how much of the story you already can infer. Well, how did you know, Mike, had to be about separation, father and son? Well, it's a universal story. Every son, every daughter's got to separate one way or another, or they don't, and that's a story too. Like Sal's Pizzeria story. Any other comments? Thank you for that, Jennifer. Any other comments about the way we're going about it and what you're learning with this? Aurelia, what about you?
It's really helpful and really illustrative to go through a story like this together and to hear everybody's interpretations to enrich, things I kind of thought in the beginning, and it just helps me start to see what is there, and going slowly and going line by line is really great.
Beautiful. Would you ever think so much of this could be, inferred from a little bit of data like this?
Yeah, and it's like we know how the story is going to end almost just from the image. It seems so clear.
There's a quote by Adolf Portman, I'll paraphrase. He said, when he was looking at organisms, he was a zoologist. And he said, if you look at animals in development and how all the elements needed for the mature form of the animal is already there at birth, already implicit in the organism, he said, I can understand now why the mystic said the end is in the beginning and the beginning is in the end. Isn't that beautiful? Is Adolf Portman, and I think it was in the article. Well, I know the article. It's online. If you go on our website, we have it as an electronic article. Metamorphosis in Animals. It's a brilliant. Did you read that one? Remember that by Adolf Portman? Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of work. And again, he's commenting on how all the pieces you need for the mature life somehow they're already embedded in the system. As the potential form already there somewhere, and how it is all of a sudden something develops at 4 months in the fetus, something develops at 6 months or whatever, and he said the end is in the beginning, beginning's in the end. So yeah, and you can infer many things, and that's why I said earlier tonight. This is one of the things I love about this work. So great work, ladies! Fantastic, 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 and I think we're going to continue this style for a while. Okay. I can't think of a much better way to teach this stuff and learn about it together. So I'd like you all to be thinking, next time we get back on, you ladies doing stage 2 to the same presentation, okay? Cool. And I want people to think about after that, a month from now, who's presenting. So you ladies are on in 2 weeks. Great work. Bravo. Bravo. Okay, guys. And any questions, call the office. We got a lot of things cooking. We're busy getting everything ready. The dream program starts in a couple of weeks. We got a tremendous response to that. Just let us know if you want to be part of it. We got the beginning, and then we got the advance and the master going together. The Australian group is taking off. Susanna's in it. Robin's in it. Sue's in it, and some other people.
I do
father calling me up today.
I do have a question for Evie and Jennifer, please.
Yeah.
the magician represented, you said you looked up, and thank you for doing that. You looked up the meaning for, yes, and you discovered that it meant crescent moon. Is crescent moon represent the descendants that Michael has been talking to us about? Because crescent moon obviously is feminine, and it symbolizes femininity.
Well,
That's a great comment.
not in all cultures it represents femininity, but I think you'll see that it represents the cycle of life, the mutable body, as opposed to the sun, which is the eternal body. And both of those symbols will come up later, but in here it means it's just the mutable, changing body and life that comes and goes, passes.
It's a great catch, Nadar.
Thank you.
The crescent moon, yeah, beautiful. Okay, everybody, I will see you in 2 weeks, if not before.
All right. Good
Hey,
night.
Brenda, nice seeing you there, Brenda.
It's good to be with.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Michael.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you,
Thanks
Michael.
for getting on the screen there for us. Good night, ladies in Moscow. Get some sleep.
We will.
Buonanotte. Ciao.
Buonanotte.